Hey Claire, how you doing?
Frustrated. I'm trying to write out what I'm going to say to my boss about my MS.
Well, I see you're making wonderful progress.
I feel like I'm opening Pandora's box here. I mean, once the word's out, there's no turning back. And how do I go about telling him? And what do I even tell him about my condition? I have no idea how he'll react. And what about my coworkers? I mean, are they going to treat me like some kind of a freak or something? Vanessa, I don't even know what to ask for.
Okay, hold on. Let's just take this one step at a time.
All right.
First, you know you're not the first person to be going through this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let me show you what I found out.
Your employer does have the right to know that you are a person with a disability. Very important distinction between disability and multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is a diagnosis.
You do not have to say that you have MS. You can say that you have a neurological impairment that limits some of your activities, and you get very tired at times.
Not all people with multiple sclerosis are people with disabilities under the ADA. And so having the diagnosis doesn't tell the employer really anything at all about the functional aspects of your ability to do the job.
And it's important to know, first of all, that you do not have to disclose that you have a disability on the job unless you are seeking some type of accommodation.
Now, this brings up a very important question. Are you at a point where you feel you can no longer do your job without an accommodation?
I think it's very important for Claire to realize that maybe once people are starting to recognize that something's going on,
didn't we already discuss that?
That possibly her supervisor or the employer is also recognizing that something's going on.
Well, I'm just as much concerned as the customer is.
There's no question that this is a very stressful time for her. She's dealing with these particularly challenging symptoms. She's really seeing the impact that those symptoms are having on her ability to follow her job duties through. And if she's noticing that, most likely some other people at work are also noticing that.
What did she have for lunch?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's time. But who needs to know about this?
It's important for you to remember that once you disclose your disability to your employer, if you choose to do so, that is confidential information shared between you, your employer, and possibly a representative from Human Resources who may need to know about subsequent accommodations that will need to be made. That is not public information for everyone else on your team, in your department, or for the corporate newsletter. That is private, confidential information. If you choose to tell one of your other coworkers, you certainly can do so. But of course know that you may be opening yourself up that the rest of the department may then find out.
I'm just so worried about how my boss will react to this.
I think probably one of the ultimate fears of disclosing is that that person is going to be fired, or that they're going to be maybe pigeonholed into a dead-end job that they can no longer move up.
The disadvantages to disclosing are not legal disadvantages, but they're more societal disadvantages.
Whenever you give somebody a label that they don't understand very well, or one that affects people differently, you're engaging their existing biases about that very label.
For me to tell you something I can't do, it's hard. For me to say, for me to admit it in public, I'm going to fall asleep if you don't help me. I can't remember what you're saying. My God, it doesn't feel good. And when my boss hears that, gee, is Chuck going to be good enough to be my star anymore? So there are some disadvantages, and they're attitudinal.
Other times employers will start seeing the dollar signs, safety issues, healthcare costs, things of that nature. What's this going to do? What if you go out on long-term disability? What are the costs going to be of that?
I can understand why you're worried. There are some disadvantages to disclosing. But in addition to getting the accommodations you need, there are some advantages too.
There are several advantages to disclosing. to an employer. One, it may just reduce your own stress. Keeping this secret can be very stressful. And obviously, we're always looking at ways to manage the stress that we do have in our lives.
And if you disclose well, you'll feel better, which makes it easier for you to do your job and to keep your job, so that since MS is a progressive disease that strikes unpredictably, it is kind of an insurance policy for yourself to be honest with your employer.
Another advantage is it can open up lines of communication that were previously not there and help to clarify some possible misconceptions.
Wayne Jackson is a project manager for Charles Schwab and Company. He conducts training sessions for their online educational service.
We have that set up for September the 12th.
Pam Allen is an associate project manager for Biogen IDEC.
Yeah.
When Wayne disclosed to Charles Schwab and Pam disclosed to a previous employer, they had very different but not uncommon reactions to their disclosure.
I don't think they knew how to react to someone with MS because it was so new to them. Not only was it the condition new to me, but it was new to them.
You know, my past employer, I have no idea what he was concerned about. I really don't. Because one day he didn't know that I had MS. The next day he did know that I have MS.
They didn't know if they could touch me. They didn't know if they could give me additional work. There was just a lot of uncertainty. And then that uncertainty was across the board.
He just treated me much differently. It's kind of like from one day to the next, the day before. After he found out I had MS, he doubted my ability.
I found myself being a walking billboard because I always had something in my backpack or in my briefcase, because if there was something that they were unaware of or unsure of, I would pull out a brochure.
I felt like I had two choices. I could either stay there and continue to fight every uphill battle that came my way with this job, or I could find another job, and I chose to find another job.
Okay, so I'm on line 2 right now. I'm a project manager with the live online component, where I play an essential role in delivering workshops through the virtual channels, what we call live online. I love what I do. I've been in several different capacities with Charles Schwab.
You know, my current employer, I'm talking about my immediate manager, is very compassionate. I think she would be most concerned with my health, how I would be doing physically, more so than whether I'm going to be able to do a particular job. I think she would be most concerned about me as a person.
And one of the things that I like is my immediate boss, who is in San Francisco, Miss Gina Fung, she's that much more attentive to how am I feeling? Do I need anything? Is there anything that I'm not receiving now that I can receive? And the great thing about that is if I ever needed a wheelchair or a bigger desk or a larger office, Gina has set it up so that I'm that much more at ease and comfortable to just ask her.
Okay, so I've decided to go through with this, and I know that there is a downside to disclosure, so how do I go about in telling him in as positive a light as possible?
Well, you hit the key word right there, positive. You also need to give it some good thought and planning. And you also don't want to just drop it on them during a coffee break either. What I found out doing my research is that some employers are okay with just a verbal disclosure, while others prefer to have it in writing. Either way, you need to plan what you're going to say.
I would say almost come up with a disclosure script, practice it. Usually a disclosure script is comprised of 4 different parts. One is disclosing the MS or the medical condition.
Sometimes people with MS, we've talked with a lot of folks who will say things like, oh, I have this nerve thing, comes and goes. Well, guess what, folks? MS is a nerve thing. It does come and go, and you haven't sold away your privacy when you share it in that fashion.
I tell my clients to keep it simple and not to give more information than is needed. And what they need to know is you have an impairment or you have a disability and it's under control. Now,
your employer can ask for written documentation of the disability, and that documentation does not need to include your diagnosis. That documentation, we recommend, be a 1 or 2 sentence line from a healthcare provider, social worker, psychologist, rehabilitation counselor, nurse, physical therapist, occupational therapist. These are the people who can certify disability status.
So let's hear the first section.
Okay. I have recently been diagnosed with MS. No. Okay, that's just not right. Okay, I've recently been diagnosed with a medical condition that is affecting some of my mental and physical functions.
Okay, I think you need to be more specific about your mental and physical functions. I mean, you don't want them to think that all of a sudden now you have an IQ of 35 and you're about to pass out at any moment.
Yeah. All right. Okay, you're right. Okay, so I have recently been diagnosed with a medical condition that affects my memory and balance.
So I think we're off to a good start.
The second component would be describing the way that the MS is directly affecting her.
Remember last year I did this for you? Well, I had MS, but it wasn't a problem. Now all of a sudden it's a problem. It's not, I don't want it to be a problem. So I want to continue to do, and I think I can, and emphasize the positive.
Obviously with MS, there's so much variability from person to person that it's important to relate your MS, to relate Claire's MS, to her symptoms and how they are affecting her at work.
Okay, I am proud of the award-winning work that I've been able to produce for the agency. I want to continue to do what I do best, developing creative and innovative design solutions for our clients. My memory and balance issues are beginning to interfere with my ability to be as effective as I want to be.
You're on a roll, girl.
The third component is providing the accommodations or suggesting the accommodations to the employer.
See, if you know what your company's policy is, say, you know, boss, I was thinking about Flexiplace, or I was thinking about our telecommuting policy, or maybe work at home, and I found this. And the boss may say, gee, I didn't even know we had that. Can we do that? Well, but your job requires you to be here. Well, I can be there if you need me.
I just don't know what kinds of accommodations I need to ask for.
Well, that's something that we'll need to investigate. Let's just put that issue aside for right now and move on.
And the fourth component of that disclosure script is finishing on a positive note. With these accommodations, I know I'm going to be able to continue to excel in my job. I know I'm going to be able to perform and to meet the deadlines that I need to meet.
Rather than saying, under the ADA, I'm entitled to reasonable accommodation. Your boss is going to go, oh my God, there's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Get her out of here. You want to build on the positive, and you want to build with your successes.
I think there's the course of action of making sure they understand it is in their beneficial, their financial and productive interests to make you as productive as possible because of the cost of bringing in a new person.
And I'm looking forward to working with you to find the best solutions that will maximize the contribution that I can make to our company.
Okay, I think we're almost there. The only part we need to deal with now is this part about accommodations, which we'll work on next time. Hey, Claire. What's going on?
Oh, this is so hard, Vanessa. I mean, I feel like I'm coming out or something. I just have no idea how people are going to react to me, and how will I respond to them?
I can't really answer that. All I know is that right now, while you're feeling very alone, know that there are a lot of other people who have gone down this road before you. And it'll be good for you to learn from their experiences.
And it's funny because when people look at me and they'll go, he doesn't look like he has MS. And I want to say to them, what am I supposed to look like? Am I supposed to have a wheelchair? Am I supposed to have crutches, a cane?
I kept telling people I had a pinched nerve, and that story was wearing thin. And so I think because I had just been promoted and had been in a scooter, I said, well, I've got nothing to lose, so I just went ahead and told them. Things have been very positive since.
I finally decided it was time for me to tell my manager about it, and I sat down and told him. And his response was, oh, wow, what can we do to make your job easier? How can we help? The fear ended up all being on my side and really none from theirs. They were very, very accommodating and accepting, which was a really pleasant surprise for me.
One of the advantages of letting my employer know that I had MS is that I could ask for things that would help me do my job better and help me to be more productive.
I'd say that negative feedback, along with other things in life, is far behind me. And it's taught me how to adapt to that type of reaction and change.